During the BAFTA Awards, Tourette's activist John Davison hurls the N-word at Sinners actors Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo.
Good evening. Delroy and I are delighted to be presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making.
We're here to celebrate the artists who expand what's possible on screen.
Tourette's is a neurological disorder categorized by involuntary, repetitive movements and vocalizations known as tics.
Hi, my name is Shay. I have Tourette's. And the biggest question of the day is, what even is Tourette's? Corey Kenshin. I want to start this off by saying, suck it. Tourette syndrome is not the only condition that causes... Your breath smells like cheese, Chef Pee-Pee. Tourette syndrome is not the only condition that causes tics. That tick really caught me off guard. But Tourette syndrome, bitch, is a neurological condition that causes uncontrollable and involuntary movements and sounds. As I said before, there are other conditions that causes tics. However, with Tourette syndrome, these tics are going to be lifelong, permanent. My name is Bobby. I like to party. If you don't believe me, mommy shake my body. Oh, that's really painful. These tics also have to start throughout the childhood, dick down in Dallas, and have to go on longer than a year. Now, if you're wondering what causes Tourette's, despite popular speculation that here's your receipt, that it's actually demonic, it's not. It just goes by the misfire of neurons in the brain. So basically, like, you know, a robot malfunctioning. I get compared to malware, baby back chilies, which I do not find offensive. This is a tic, by the way. With Tourette's, tics usually start. They killed Kenny. Tics usually start at the age 5 through 10 years old. However, can start during teenage years as well. Just not during adulthood, because it has to start before the age of 18. There are other tic disorders that you can have that can cause you to have tics after the age of 18. Wear your swag, nigga. I hope this helped. Freaking mint. Finn's arm is mint.
Man who called Michael B. Jordan the N-word today said this.
Sometimes my tics, I'll shout the N-word, you know.
That can get you in trouble.
People misunderstand that and they see it as being racist. And that's one thing, I ain't racist. You
just can't control what's coming out of your...
can't control what is supposed to not be said.
It's very hard, because if you're standing out there and you shout out the N-word or the B-word, and someone's walking past, they're going to think you're just being rude or racist. Can it be triggered?
Triggers are a massive thing for Tourette's, being in a social space like this. Things like certain noises outside can trigger tics. Someone walking along the street that's maybe a bit overweight, and I'm like, you know, and it's like, I didn't want to say that because the last thing I want to do is offend and upset someone.
I always wonder if white people who had Tourette's said the N-word, and I guess I got my answer now. It might be a little different in John Davidson's case, because when I went to do a little bit of research, it said that only 10% of people who have Tourette's have involuntary Tourette's syndrome. I also read that it's not an inflection on how a person may speak on a daily, but honestly, I don't know. That information is probably not going to stop most of us from being offended, because why that word? Also, the clip that I played you guys earlier came from an interview 4 months prior from today. In the interview, he speaks about the last time him being at a movie theater was at the age of 10. And the last movie he's ever watched at a cinema was E.T. because that's when his symptoms started showing up and he was way too embarrassed to keep going. So he talked about not being able to go to the movies with his friends. He just kind of stayed home because he didn't want to mess it up for everybody else. He also talked about having trouble with law enforcement because he would involuntarily call them pigs and they would detain him for it. Imagine thinking the worst thing that you can say at the time and can't even control yourself not to say it. That's crazy. Honestly, this is a really complicated issue. Why do I feel like somebody's gonna turn this into a skit one day? This low-key reminds me of the Sweet Anita situation. Y'all remember that one girl from the Streamer Awards? She also had Tourette's and she was letting it go on that stage. I'm not gonna lie, it was crazy. And I was in my mind like, I wonder if she gonna say the N-word. I was like, you gonna say it? You gonna say it? Anyways, how do you guys feel about this situation? Do y'all believe him when he says that he isn't racist, or do you think this is just an excuse?
Ignore how I look right now. Corey Kenshin. I am not feeling too great. However, there is something I have been asked to talk about, and that is going to be the BAFTA situation. I have been seeing a bunch of outrage about it, people saying, oh, well, why would that even be in his vocabulary? He did that on purpose and all of this stuff, and that racism is to excuse. Very bitch sad day for the Tourette syndrome community, especially for the ones that have coprolalia, because when you come online and you see thousands of people hating on your condition, specifically coprolalia, because that's something that is already very embarrassing for all of us. I'm not going to say that people can't be offended by the fact that somebody said the N-word as a tick. However, it's not something that somebody can control. It's not something that somebody wants to say. And I've been seeing a lot of people be like, well, he said it like when the crowd went silent. That is most likely when a tick is going to happen, when you're in public, when you're in complete silence, or when you're trying not to say or do something. So we must understand what coprolalia is. Coprolalia causes involuntary swearing and inappropriate tics. This can include the N-word, slurs, etc. I am a Black person, and even I have the N-word tick and slurs as tics. This is something I don't see many talk about because of situations like this. Is it a disappointing thing? Shut up! That it happened in public in front of that entire crowd, specifically to Michael B. Jordan and the other presenter. I'm so sorry, I do not know his name. I wish I did, but no disrespect to him. I just am not too aware. Yes, it is a very unfortunate situation. Seeing so many people say that they would invoke violence against people with coprolalia if they can't control their tics. That's ableism. It's a fucked up thing that this happens, yes, but it's something that we can't control. Aggression in the brain being triggered, shut up, and ultimately causing inappropriate tics. Michael B. Jordan and the other presenter have the right to be upset, especially if they were not aware. However, we need to understand and educate ourselves. And on my videos, I constantly see people saying, oh my god, so funny, if I had cursing tics, I would be laughing all the time. But when people actually have cursing tics, then it's offensive and they're a bad person and this and that, the third. We need to do better. We need to educate ourselves better. This is not me saying that people don't have the right to be offended. However, you can't be offended when a disabled person is disabled. I might make a part 2 to this. There's a lot that I need to say, but
I feel like with this situation, we need to hold two things at once. Yes, he has Tourette's, and he didn't mean to say it, but it doesn't change the fact that the situation was racist. I mean, two Black men were on stage, and they got the N-word hurled at them, which is a word that is historically used and still used to dehumanize and villainize Black people. So I still feel like John Davidson should apologize. We can give understanding to the situation, but it doesn't change the fact that he should apologize. Even with me knowing that the man has Tourette's, it doesn't change the fact that watching it I felt hit. Like it still hit you in your chest.
Oh, this is egregious. This is absolutely egregious. And I know somebody's going to jump into my comment section and explain why we as Black people should not be offended, how we can't feel how we naturally feel when we hear that word because of the circumstances and the disability that is affecting this man here. And I want to be clear, I'm not trying to disregard that disability, but many things are true at once, y'all. Many things are true at once, and we could talk about intent, but we also need to talk about impact. We need to talk about that. We need to talk about how that word wasn't flung around until two Black people were on stage. We need to talk about how y'all think that that word only affects those two Black people and not an entire community of people. We need to talk about how immediately people want us to be understanding and compassionate when those same sentiments are rarely, if ever, afforded to us. We need to talk about the fact that there are Black people who are also disabled and how y'all keep leaving them out of this conversation. But finally, we need to talk about the painful realization that too often folks feel entitled to Black folks being gracious and compassionate when we have overextended way too often our grace and compassion and forgiveness, when way too often those sentiments aren't returned to us, and how demoralizing and how dehumanizing that is. We need to talk about that.
Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this.